Hello, and welcome back to another Obscure Undead. I'm Azzy.
And I'm Adam, also known as the Black Rose.
And today we are going to tell you all about Spectres' new album, Hindsight, which was released November 5th, 2021 on Artifact Records as a follow-up to their 2020 album, Nostalgia. And this one kind of caught me out of left field. I did not expect it to have such a punky vibe compared to the, more sweet post-punk vibe that Nostalgia had.
Well, and all of their stuff. I've been a fan of Spectres since 2018. I've seen them twice, and I met them the second time. The first time was when they opened for Clan of Xymox and the Bellwether Syndicate, which was in the autumn of that year. And the second time was the year after, in 2019. It was in early to mid-September, I think, close to the autumn. And they opened for Pink Turns Blue. That was the night I met them. They're quite a lovely group of blokes. And, they're very... I would describe them as being very kind, but also very dedicated. They're very passionate about the band and what they do. So I think it's unsurprising that a band with that type of chemistry would come up with something that's rather experimental and, for us, surprising. I did not expect a record that crusty, or crust-punk driven from Spectres. I didn't at all.
Yeah, on Bandcamp, this album is listed as being peace punk, and it's also been described as anarcho-punk, and the first two tracks, Cold War and Message from Above, are very punky. I was so surprised because this album, just in those two tracks, delivered a lot of what I was hoping for from 1919 this year. Even though their new release is also good, it didn't have like that punk vibe, but Spectres delivered, and the tracks are so political, and I love it. I love it. This is the one of the great uses of art is political criticism, and the first track, Cold War, it rehashes a lot of that Red Scare rhetoric in a way that, even though it's still referencing things like Red Book and Red Square, does still very much apply to sort of the state of the world right now.
Indeed. Well, I would if you were to ask me to describe the album using only one word, that word would probably be merciless. It's a very unforgiving record. And hear that literally from the first 3 seconds of the album.
Right.
It starts off with an opening of a recording of a man, I'm guessing some historical figure that I'm not familiar with, speaking in the Slavic tongue, and immediately from there, the aggression begins, which carries on to the second track. Now, I liked it. I'm not criticizing it. I'm not saying it's rubbish or anything like that. I liked it. However, I can't say that I loved it. And you probably know me very well. I do not come from a punk background. Number 1, I'm Goth. Number 2, I'm a metalhead. And number 3, I'm an aspiring Grivet head, let's say. Got a bit of an industrial fascination. So punk for me, I listen to more pop music than I listen to punk, So for me, those two songs confused me a bit. I definitely don't think I'm the right person to talk about them, but nonetheless, I appreciate them. And I still consider myself a fan of Spectres, even though Nostalgia is always going to be my favourite album, or at least thus far. I still think that this album, forgetting its title already, Hindsight, has a lot to offer. Now, as for myself, that journey begins on track 3, the Visions of a New World. That song opens up with those post-punk beats, or drum beats rather.
Right.
The two-step, I think.
This is when it kind of moved from that punk into something that I would describe as a bit more Joy Division.
Yes, very post-punk. I get, to me, tracks 3 to 7, you kind of feel like The Damned, especially the punkier side of The Damned, like go back to songs like New Rose or albums like The Black Album and Strawberries, blended with Echo and the Bunnymen. I get that kind of a vibe from it. And I like it. I mean, Complications I mean, that could easily be a song from The Damned, or at least a song inspired by The Damned.
I would love to dance to Complications. This song was so good.
It's very punky, but it's also, like I said, it reminds me so much of The Damned back in the day, where it sits on the cusp between post-punk and punk, you know, or I guess you could say anarcho. I don't know punk that well.
Kind of like UK Decay, like that kind of vibe. UK Decay, Sex Gang Children, some of the Killing Joke.
I would also, yes, definitely some of the Killing Joke, and I would also say a little bit of Skeleton of Phantom, just a little bit, just you know, the guitars. The Provincial Wake was also one that stood out to me. It's got reminded me a little bit of Nostalgia, or the songs on Nostalgia. It's just more somber. You know, it's got good songs. That's what I'm saying. Now, to me, this album, or at least listening to it on Bandcamp, felt more like listening to a compilation. And I will let you tell us your opinion on that.
I do kind of agree with you in the way that the tracks are sort of put together sonically, because you have these really punk tracks that go into then like the more post-punk tracks. Then you have 3 tracks in the like 8, 9, and 10, which are part-time punk session live recordings, which yes, I thought was a really interesting choice. And then the album leaves off with more of what I would have expected from Spectres, and that is a bit more of the Smiths sounding tracks. So not lyrically, but yes, sort of sonically, the different sort of vibes that they hit on all of these tracks, it does end up making it feel like a compilation, or like one of those best of progression through the years sorts of albums. And that might also feel that way because it's 12 tracks, but lyrically, however, the album is very cohesive in its criticism and thematic messaging. So in that aspect, I cannot say that it feels like a compilation at all.
I'll tell you how this album makes me feel. I mean, going from the first 2 tracks into the middle section, and then you know, towards the end. Maybe you've experienced this, I don't know. It makes me feel like having a nightmare, then having a dream that I typically have, you know, or a usual type of dream that I have, and then waking up back to reality. You know, it feels like it's got 3 sections, and all 3 of them are kind of different, but at the same time, they're, you know, so connected. If that makes sense.
I would say that fits in with the theme of the album, which is hindsight and looking at societal mistakes in the past, because you think that you're waking up into reality, which is absolutely sane, which is the present day, but you're remembering, you know, the absurdism of your dreams, except in this case, they're not a dream. It's actually bullshit that happened. It's the atrocities of mankind that we keep just doing over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I love albums like this, like this kind of messaging. But I think I've made, you know, I haven't ever downplayed that I love when art is used for politics, like in this way, like as a medium of protest.
You know, sometimes I wonder if the pandemic has influenced this album. You know, I listen to it and look back at it, sometimes I wonder,
I mean, it's possible if you listen to the lyrics on some of these tracks where, you know, they talk about the downtrodden. There's a lot of references, at least in my mind, to sort of the wealth gap, about how it doesn't matter how society's run, it's always run by businessmen and, you know, the bourgeoisie. And within that, you know, like where we are right now, it's being described as a new golden age, or not golden age, gilded age, where the super rich flaunt their wealth while, you know, people are hand to mouth struggling on a day-to-day basis. And one of the positive things, despite all of the terrible shit that kind of happened in the Gilded Age, is that there was a lot of social reform that came out of that. And so maybe we'll see sort of that parallel played again in modern times when we come out of this second Gilded Age, where, you know, there'll be a lot of positive social change that builds on a lot of this just inequity of the past.
Indeed.
I did not mean to get so political talking about this album.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. I know we're not allowed to say the C word on Obscure Undead, but...
Communism?
No, the more business-driven one.
Capitalism does not make sense. That's what Sex Gang Children tells me.
Yeah, well, that one. I mean, I prefer it to communism, but I don't like it either. It's that's the whole thing about punk that a lot of people don't quite get, as well as goth as well, now to punk. As long as that continues to exist, we're always going to have classism and social inequality, because that system is designed as a perfect scheme. So it's got to come up with something new when the pigs fly. I don't see that going away. But there is a saying. They do say, I can only remember it verbatim. The worse the politics... Oh no. When the politics are at their worst, that's when the best punk rock songs come out. Something like that. And this album could totally be a result of that.
Quite possibly. So hey, y'all should go listen to this album and tell us what you think of the messaging. Do you like the use of music to deliver a political message? Do you hate it? I love it. I want to hear your opinion. You know, why or why not? If you think I'm just dumb and wrong and you think that we're completely off base, tell us. Let's have a conversation.
And I would like to add to that, if Spectres ever come to your city, go see them. They are great live. Coming from someone who's seen them twice and met them once, their shows are amazing.
All right, so let's end this on a bit more of a positive note. Adam, what's your affirmation?
Well, a building is a building, a house is a house, and a sewer is a sewer. It's what you make of it.
Enigmatic. All right, we'll see you all next time. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
This is